Look, they made you work very hard for that one.
Yeah, they did. They've been, if you look back on their year, they've been extremely competitive. They haven't won a lot of games as yet, but they've pushed a lot of teams, and obviously they've had their challenges here and there, but we expected that today, and we had to get a lot out of ourselves, obviously being one down for most of the game, and it's just a real credit to the 21 who ended up playing 4 quarters and even losing Marcus for half a quarter, just for them to adjust and apply themselves in the manner that we did. It was a super effort in the end.
Bottom's effort to come back and play in that second half was, how fit was he?
It was okay. But he's got a sprain there and a knock on a sprain, so he's obviously pretty sore. And that's the epitome of courage, I suppose, for your team, and wanting and willing to go out and finish the game. We would have been in a lot of strife if we were only playing with 20. And yeah, he was tremendous, and he really lifted his game again, because he obviously needed to fight through a tag, and even though he couldn't kick any goals in the third quarter, he was instrumental in some of those plays and keeping the ball in our front half and creating some opportunities. So yeah, it was enormous from him.
He definitely plays if Toby's not out of the game.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think we won't take any risks with any of our players. So if there's anything long term that you might set yourself back with, then you just don't take the risk and a player's out of the game. And so yeah, with Marcus, it wasn't a great deal of instability, just a fair bit of pain, and he ended up fighting through it, and he got through the game in the end.
How is Toby looking with the hamstring?
Oh, it's early prognosis, but I'd imagine he'll be out for a while. As usual, the mandatory scans will happen, and then we'll give you some more once the medics know exactly what's going on.
Some of the goal kicking today, I mean, is that still a fairly big concern for you? I guess that some opportunities could have gone begging there.
Yeah, most of those are in flow. A lot of them were snaps and sort of turnover live ball opportunities, and it was good that we were creating them. It's a shame we couldn't at least drive a handful of them home. But I think the set shot goal kicking was pretty good, and I think that's the one that everyone normally talks about. But we'd like to be able to finish some of those opportunistic opportunities more often, and we didn't take those chances in the third quarter, and that put us under a bit of pressure. But we steadied and came again, so it was important. And Bailey Smith's goal in that last quarter was a ripper, and it just gave us a little bit of breathing space, and that was tremendous.
We have to ask you about Josh Dunkley. 39 touches, 15 tackles, goes on and on. Phenomenal performance.
Yeah, he's having an outstanding year. He really is, and he's been consistent every week. Early in the year, he was probably about 50-50 forward and midfield, and obviously we had some depth through there in recent times, losing. Even early in the year, we felt like we needed an adjustment, and it was Josh's time to spend more time in there, and he just hasn't looked back, which is tremendous for him and us as a team. And then, they really need to shoulder a load at the moment, and he sets a fine example, and it was another outstanding performance from him. We needed it, and it's a credit to him, and it just adds to the week-to-week consistency that he's been able to show us.
Can you talk us through a little bit more around the decision-making at the start of the year around playing him 50-50? Because he obviously finished last year playing mostly as a midfielder, and he played so well.
Yeah.
And then was it Libba coming back? Was it something else? How did you make it?
Yeah, last year was, I don't know if you can remember, but Josh was, even when we first started in 2016, he was a bit of midfield, a bit of forward. He's a threat up forward. He works extremely hard. He's a good aerialist. And we had a little bit of depth through our midfield, and over time, and it's usually what happens with a young player, they earn their stripes in there. But Josh is a pretty good forward, and so when we haven't been tall either, we needed aerial, so we needed some tall representation, and Josh provides that at different times. So when he went into there last year, he originally started tagging, and he it was probably the Geelong game last year where if you go back and look at the Brownlow, it was Dunkley 3, I think Selwood 2 and Dangerfield 1. And that was an example. He actually kept someone quiet that day and he got 3 Brownlow votes. So that was an example of how much he progressed under his own steam and, some work with the coaches and our conditioning staff. And at the start of this year, again, with a bit of depth through the midfield, got to remember that even recently we've had Libba go out and Wally's gone out. But it wasn't, we weren't getting exactly what we needed through that midfield. So rather than needing and relying on him forward a bit in his game, we thought, no, we need him in the midfield. So credit to him for him to earn that belief in what he can contribute, and that's a long-winded answer for the history of Josh Dunkley, but he's playing good footy.
You've got some momentum, some real steam up, Luke. I think 4 wins out of 5 games now. Do you talk about the finals carrot that dangles there with your boys, or is it just sort of so obvious as a coach you don't have to talk about that sort of opportunity which may be ahead for you?
Yeah, I think the latter. I mean, everyone's aware of your position and where you are on the ladder. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I don't look at it. I do. We've got a low percentage. It doesn't help. But we don't talk about what happens after round 23 now because of the bye. We don't talk about that. We're looking at the next opportunity and whatever the words are around what the possibilities are and whether you dream or whether you hope or whatever it is. I think people have got different streams of that going on in their head, but I don't talk about anything else but the following week to our group. And you never know what can happen. I mean, that's really the train of thought that I've always been on as a coach, and I believe a hell of a lot in our players and our group, and our progress. I mean, the boys have applied themselves all year. Our progress can be put down to many things, but I think our players have really developed and moved on, and as a group, there's some chemistry there now. And it's a real credit to them, to our players to stay in it, because it is a long year, and now it gives you a new sort of lease of life when, maybe at some point others may fall away, but that's we've got to make sure that we mitigate the risk of that happening to us.
How significant will it be if you are to get back to finals? Because there's been so much focus on the fact that you won the flag in 2016.
We've had one finals question, mate. Yeah, so how significant will it be? Well, yeah, I would rather stay in the now because, we're 8 and 8, but what would we be after today? I don't think we might move up one spot on the ladder. So, if you have a look, we're still, I think, almost 2 games out or a game out of the 8th side or whatever, plus percentage, which is 2 games. And there's not a lot of room to wriggle. So, who knows? But we'll be endeavouring to win all 6 games if we can, starting this week with the Saints.
Can you explain that, Luke, the philosophy in the midfield? Because clearly you don't rely on the hit out or to win the hit out, and that's been the case for a while. I mean, today the numbers were clearly stacked in Melbourne's favour. What is your view generally on being able to win games of footy despite that clear ascendancy to the opposition ruckman?
Yeah, well, we plan for the possibility or the probability that the opposition may be dominant there, and so we go in with that train of thought, and our preparation with our coaches, our midfield coaches, and our rucks and our mids is this is our understanding. I mean, you're definitely at a huge advantage if you know your ruck's going to get his hand on it, because you can be adventurous, you can be extremely proactive. So in a way, we're reactively proactive, if that makes sense. and it's a part of the challenge of coaching, but it's a big challenge for our midfield at times. And again, they really persevered and thought, they did an enormous job. And we're trying to help Tim out in there as well. It's really difficult for a ruckman as young as Tim to play so much game time in the ruck. So we've carved some minutes out of there, and Shaq and Norts and even some of our bigger mids in different situations are helping him out, and that's important for our team. And on a night like tonight where we had to throw some other things around, it was great that they all the boys kept their composure.
Look, did you mention at all, there was a lot to do with the 1989 fight back before the game. Was that in discussion at all amongst the group?
Yeah, it's been a big build-up, and the countdown from 30 to 1 was fascinating. And I did mention it, and Sed Nullis is our Latin motto, and obviously yield to none for people who don't know what Sed Nullis means. And the fight back, in '89 was a prime example of Sed Nullis, and where our supporters came together through the instigation of obviously some of our key pillars, Peter Gordon, Dennis Gallenberti and many others, and obviously Irene Chatfield was a key figure in all of that. But our supporters and supporters from opposition teams dug deep as well. Got a passion for the game and then probably adopted us at the time as a second club. And so today, we're talking about it not necessarily being a fight back for us as a team. It's just a continual fight to work out where you belong in the competition and for your own identity. And so we talked about today more as a celebration. Our supporters have given us this opportunity to come together. The people who currently work at our football club are magnificent people, and we're all fortunate to be there with each other. And if it wasn't for our supporter base and what they were able to do in 1989, then we wouldn't be here together. So today was a celebration of that more than anything, and we did mention it, and I think we felt it a little bit, and I think the jumpers look great.
Look, your president this week, Peter Gordon, said that he's keen to lock you up almost for life, or for the senior coach for
Did he say that?
Well, sort of.
Lock me up?
No, I put a word in his mouth there, but for a very long time, he said it's an interesting environment for senior coaches at the moment. I think we all sort of acknowledge that. Is it your intention to be the coach of this football club sort of for many years beyond next year?
Yeah, I love the place, and my commitment's always first and foremost to the players, and then secondary to the club. That's the way I always operate. Obviously to our staff as well, but I really enjoy what I do. I love the fact that I'm connected with the red, white, and blue and the doggies, and it is my intention. I mean, I've got another year to run on my contract. It has become a little bit unstable, the coaching fraternity, the ranks. So I think we all understand that, and we're talking about it, but there's no absolute urgency right at this point in time. But we're working through some preliminaries to work out what happens, because the landscape has changed a little bit.
And the other thing was we had a curtain raiser today. Saw a few familiar faces running around. Are you likely to get any of them back into the 22 next week?
Yeah, well, there'll definitely be one change with Toby. We think that Libba will probably be available this week, coming back from injury, and there's a chance that Caleb might be available as well. So Bailey Dale played really well in the first half, and we need to take him off just to keep him up our sleeve. And there were others that played pretty well. Young Westie played pretty well again, and so there is a little bit of pressure there, and the lads in this 22 keep putting their best foot forward. There's no doubt there'll be at least one change, and we'll work through that over the course of the week.